Well, hey, buddy. Fancy meeting you here.
Hello, hello. What's up?
Another Threat Thursday live. This has been a busy week, man.
Yeah, so I had that workshop yesterday. Got this today. Should be a good one though.
Yeah, show off something a little different, a little interesting. We're not gonna deep dive into a threat today, right? We're just gonna talk about some cool, interesting little spots to find juicy loot during engagements, whether that's purple team trying to show effects, or if you're on a say a pen test or a red team, just digging for creds or something, right? Just some places we thought were interesting.
The places, yeah. Just this one would be a little different. We're not going to go through the thread like we normally do. Think because a lot of this information is kind of all over the place. We thought it'd be a little easier to go to the old tried and true slideshows there with some screenshots in it. But yeah, I mean we only got 20 minutes. We're going to try to actually be on time today, so we'll see. We'll just jump right into it. The first
Yeah,
one. Oh,
let's
you
do
want
it.
to you want to hit the sticky notes? This is more your bread and butter for this one.
Yeah, this one's really interesting. So this was a little trick I've used for a while now. A lot of people don't realize that the Sticky Notes native app for Windows, especially, I mean, going all the way back through Windows 7, moving into present day, is just a backend database. They're saving an SQLite DB of all of the entries you ever make. It keeps the status if they were newly created, the sticky note's still open, you closed or deleted it. And the funny thing is that a lot of these don't ever go away. They just remove the entry from view. So one of the tricks I would do is if I was looking for something and I'm not having much luck, I know a lot of people, it's just a habit. You use the sticky notes app or you use Notepad or something, you drop credentials, useful links, reminders, stuff like that in there. So I'd go and snatch this database, parse it real fast, looking for any kind of credentials, things like that. And you guys can see an example of it up here on the slides. But you can dig through it and easily using something like a DB browser, see all of the entries, their placement, even the color of the sticky note, yellow, green, things like that, if it's still an active one. So it's a quick, easy win there. The other route I would do this with, say I'd exfil the database back off that victim host, and then I can parse it using this little Python script to just rip all of the contents from the notes themselves, because I don't necessarily need the color of the note, stuff like that.
Yeah,
The trick
yeah.
here is, go ahead.
See, you just want that juicy part, and that's kind of on theme to kind of the two different ways to view it. Is we have that for a few of the different bits of loot on here. It's like some of them, for to view it in the database viewer, you'd have to have those files, maybe exfil them out, and then look at them later on, or have like RDP access or any desk at they have to have GUI access to the machine to be able to do that. Where if you run the script, you can run it just through Scythe, and then the results of it will appear just right there in the response, and you don't have to pull anything back. But that's kind of on theme for a bunch of the other ones we're gonna talk about too. Almost two different ways to do it.
Yeah, the other interesting thing here too is if you're able to exfil that SQLite database and the SHM and WAL files, basically like the event registers for the sticky notes database, you can run it through, say, like this little Python script I have, or you can even use the SQLite PowerShell module and just
Oh
point it
yeah,
at the database itself, as long as it's all in the same path, and it'll read it for you that way too. So it's a really cool and interesting way to potentially get an easy win, right? I've
yeah, for
I've had
sure.
a lot of fun with this one, a lot of success, and it's really interesting what people tend to leave in sticky notes that they think don't
Yeah,
exist anymore.
yeah. That again is another. It's almost like when Snapchat first came out, and they're like, "Well, I sent it, and now it's gone." It's like, no, it's always
Not
there.
really.
Yeah, not really. But yeah, that's kind of on the theme too of it of like thinking about what you just not carelessly put, but what you just kind of throw anywhere. Sticky notes. We'll talk about it in a little bit, like clipboards, PowerShell history, like all that stuff could have really a lot of really juicy information, passwords, even credit card information. Um, yeah, not to get too ahead of myself. Let's hop into the next one. So the next one that we have is it maybe seems a little obvious, but pull in the registries back, the registry hives or the registry values. So this was really interesting. So by default, Windows has a scheduled task that will continually back up your registry files. So all you have to do is go in. It's not started by default, but it's there by default. So if you go in and just run that PowerShell command we have up there in the top in request, it will start that scheduled task. And then inside of your System32 config regback is where it'll store all of them. So you don't even have to go in. excuse me, you don't have to go in and manually try to create a backup, which will generate more logs and things like that. You could just start the service already there. It would look, I think, totally normal, right? It's inside, it's a Windows service or scheduled task, a Windows scheduled task that you're going in there to do a typical kind of maintenance administrator thing. The one trick with this is that once you start it, then that process is in use. So if you try to pull back these files right after they populate, you're going to have an issue because Windows is like these files are being used by something else. You can't manipulate them or take them or change them. So you can still get around that by doing either a virtual shadow copy. So you can make a shadow copy of everything and then pull them out that way, or you should be able to just kill the processes and suspend that scheduled task that is running to create these and then pull those out afterwards.
Well, this one was really interesting when it popped up because like, this is one of those things like you typically always see this hive targeted at some point in a pen
Mm-hmm.
test or any kind of engagement. And I mean, this has been around forever. I didn't know this schedule task existed. Like on, I want to say it's like after 17XX, whatever Windows 10 version that was.
Yeah.
Afterwards, it's disabled by default. The schedule task is still there for use, but it's not on. Before that, so from vanilla 10 to 17XX, that scheduled task would work.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And where you'll run into tricks with this here is if it's on a newer version of Windows 10 or 11, that scheduled task, the first time you run it, it's going to take 5-10 minutes to do the backup. But it's going to turn around and take those backups and drop them in System32 config regback, which you can go reach in and just grab it out of. So you don't ever have to directly interact with the registry at all or do anything crazy. It's just a normal hive in your operating system, realistically.
Well,
But
I think
after you
too,
do
and
that, every time you click it is going to be incrementally faster
yeah.
because it's only doing a backup from the last one.
Mm-hmm. I think too, you brought up a good point. Something that we talk about all the time is like simple detections can be simply bypassed. So how you were saying how everybody like you'll go in, maybe you want to do a reg save, which will take me to the next one. You want to do like a reg save like this and just pull that registry hive or value out directly. Be like someone's probably monitoring for that. They're monitoring for reg.exe save or something like that. So if you're able to start the service, have it do it for you, you totally bypass that detection.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
we
and
have.
it's
Oh, go ahead.
as I say, yeah, it's just easy little tricks and things you don't normally think of. Even as someone who's played on both sides of the field for offense and defense for well over a decade now, this has always been there. Had no idea it existed until a few weeks ago. So it's a really cool just insight that there's always something new hidden in Windows.
Hmm. So I don't know if anybody on is a fan of Game Changers. It's a show on Dropout, but the host whenever he starts, he goes, "I'm Tyler Casey, and I've been here the whole time." And that's what I was thinking when you're talking about the registries. It's like it's always been there. You just got to go and find it. But yeah, if you don't want to do it with the service or have an issue with that, you can just run a simple reg save, which is what we did here. We save off the SAM and the security hives. So you would take those offline and run it through some parsers and some password crackers and things like that to be able to ascertain some more creds. And then the next one we have kind of things just hiding in plain sight is also, I think, a theme for this threat when we were creating it is your screenshots. So when you use the snippet tool, which is really the only way that I do screenshots now, it saves all of those automatically in your picture/screenshots folder. So this is just like just the very top of the screenshots that I have on mine. I mean, I take screenshots of everything.
Hmm.
So it's like you think about just what you have in there, like what I would say everybody go into this folder and see what you have screenshots of. I think you'd be surprised how much stuff is in there and really how much value you can get out of these files, out of these images.
Well, what's really crazy too is I think we've had on this rabbit hole there for a while because of a lot of the talk with the new like embedded AI on in the Windows systems and how it was
Yep.
going to be taking basically real time screenshots of your host
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. All
and saving all
all
of
the
those
recall
down as
stuff.
well.
Hmm.
Yep.
You're like,
So
this is basically
it's
like you just doing it, the pre AI
mhm.
version of it.
Except it's your entire window every time on a
Yeah.
constant basis.
Yeah, that's crazy. We'll save that one for a different day because that recall stuff is wild. Uh, all right. So those are the screenshots, which takes us then into the clipboard tray. You want to hit this one?
So this one, I mean, this shouldn't be really a surprise to anyone, but a lot of people do tend to leave stuff in Clipboard, and I've noticed more and more. I want to say it's one of the newer Windows 11's Clipboard app that allows you to save more than one entry. So you're not just dumping
Mm,
like the last thing it saved, you're dumping everything that it has in that temp still.
yeah.
But there's always some kind of when to get out of the clipboard, whether that's the last URL to get to something or they copy and pasted a password out of their
Hmm.
password manager or something like that. And really easy, just get that clipboard, built-in PowerShell commands, you can grab it. There's a lot of fancy scripts out there that'll do it in weird ways, but I mean, in the end, it's not really necessary. If it works, it works, and we've had some easy wins with get that clipboard.
Hmm. So I would say the only real issue, with the Get Tech clipboard is you're only going to pull. This is going to sound obvious, but you're only going to pull what's in there at that time. So that takes us into kind of this into this script that we have in our thread, which will start a job to run this script constantly. And what it's doing is it's checking your clipboard. It's doing a Get Tech clipboard every second, and if it's different from what was previously there, it will record it. In that clip.txt file. So you can see in that one, obviously I was staging these to try to show something juicy in there. But I copied the file path of where I was, and then I just like kind of typed a password to kind of simulate copying and pasting a password somewhere. But you have a ton of stuff. I mean, you got credit card information, addresses, and you copy and paste everything. You're not going to type anything. There is so much stuff in your clipboard that you would be able to pull out, right? So just kind of self-explanatory, but the script is really neat, especially if you have it run in the background. You have it set for however long, every day, and then you wait until you pull it off or something like that. You can definitely find some interesting stuff in there, or you could even have this script go send a phishing attempt or something like that, or have them redirected to a place where they would need to type a password in, um, and then boom, bada bing, bada boom, set it up and get them. But
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of these shouldn't be super surprising for some people, but it's one of those things we've seen over and over again, especially over the last year in the engagements been doing. We end up defaulting back to the simple stuff, back to the basics,
yeah.
because it's still working. People aren't catching it, and it might seem trivial to bring it up now, but we're still getting wins from it. So why not mention it again? You don't have to be super crazy technical in an APT level threat to steal passwords to do this kind of
Mhm.
engagements.
So you just got to use what's provided to you, right?
Yep.
So then, kind of transitioning from some of the commands over to some of the files, some juicy files. So in this screenshot, we're just looking for files with config in the name. We have a bunch of additional steps in our thread that look for PDFs, docs, .gits, .sqls, .zips, etc. Just kind of file types that you would want to look for. And then in this one, we're just looking in, I believe, just like the user profile for all this stuff. But you could change it if they have like a network share or something like that. You could change that path of where it's looking into that network share, and maybe change those keywords to be financial or FY24 or something like that. Whatever it is that you're looking for, that you're hunting for, you can easily change these, and it's all done through PowerShell. It's pretty quick, and the results return right there. So you can kind of have a more targeted approach to your collection than just trying to collect everything, right?
Yeah, and this is one too. I wanted to kind of veer off on a minute too. There's a lot of really interesting tools that are out there that are still up for use, and one of those would be Snaffler. This is one of those that kind of does this automated recursive search for you, and it's going to dig through every mounted drive and look for any potential variants on password, keys, things like that. But it's also looking for PDFs, docs, anything that might contain
You know,
potential info you'd want or need. So that's just one little outside of if you're trying to not do it purely CLI. There's a bunch of tools that make this
mm,
really easily and accessible too.
for sure. Basically, especially if you have a huge file structure, huge file directory, this can take a bit. We try to do a lot of these just based off kind of like utilizing some of the living off the land techniques. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of tools that can do this in a quick way. Even a lot of the DFIR, the forensic tools and stuff like chainsaw to rip through rip through the registry in like no time. Those are really useful. I mean, definitely you can multi-purpose some tools to collect it maybe a little faster than just doing it in PowerShell, right?
Hmm.
But to add on to some more juicy files, so now we're going to get a little more targeted. So we're still going to look for specific file types or file names in certain directories, in certain paths, right? But we're also going to include a select string at the end, which is essentially grep for PowerShell. Um, I just thought of a grep joke. Sorry, just kind of lost my mind there for a second. But it's like grep, but for PowerShell. And we're gonna look for pass WD to try to pull some passwords out of there. Again, this can, you gotta think, doing it natively in PowerShell. If you have a huge window that you're trying to look at, right? You have a ton of files, a huge directory. It's got to read all those. It's got to parse through all those. This is going to take a little bit of time. But if you got, like, again, you do a little more targeted approach before, you know what files you want to look in and things like that, it can be a lot faster. But I like this one too because, again, we're going to output those results straight in our shell, straight in the response. We don't have to pull back files later and then try to use another tool to grep through it, right? Like Miriam said, PowerShell, it is so powerful. It's got so much use and functionality, and it's there. People use it. You could always check out our PowerShell abuse workshop we gave not too long ago. But PowerShell is there. It's real. It's what attackers are using. There's no reason why you shouldn't use it too. Oh, look at that.
So,
And then into PowerShell. Look at that. Who would have thought?
yeah, history can be super useful, especially if you land on a more sensitive host or a user that's doing something like development or administration,
Yep.
stuff like that, not just a standard user. That PowerShell history could be rich.
That's a good point that I didn't think of. You would probably get more use if you're targeting, like you said, developers or somebody that has a lot of Git files, or um, software engineers, things like network engineers. You can target them because they're like, they're gonna SSH. You can SSH through PowerShell now. I mean, you can really pull some interesting stuff out. This is just a little screenshot of mine that I have in our lab. There's nothing too juicy in there. But you can also, instead of pulling that file back, again, you can do it right through the command line. So in this, you utilize the get ps read line option with the history safe path. I can't think of what it's called after the dot, but that extra piece down there at the end. And then we're doing the same thing, just doing a select string through it, which again is just like grep, looking for pass, looking for pass WD. Just trying to and these are all fake. Those user accounts won't work if you guys try them. But you can go through and just have a more targeted approach to collection, and again, just have an immediate result and not have to wait about your exfil there at the end. Because what if you get caught before the end and you never get to exfil? So yeah, just having a little bit of an immediacy to it. And then this one is kind of a personal favorite of mine. I don't know if it's super useful, right? But it's a neat party trick. Going to be like, I bet I can tell you what your Wi-Fi password is. It's so simple. It's a net sh wlan show profile key equals clear. So this one will go through. It'll look at all of your SSIDs, which are profiles in this, and pull out the password in there. Again, could it be super useful, super practical? Maybe, maybe not. A lot of people use the same password for everything. So maybe the password they have on their Wi-Fi is the same password they have to their Gmail account. Maybe you want to set up a rogue device or something like that, and you want to connect to it wirelessly and not have to be in there. There are maybe some uses, but it's one that I just think is so neat.
Yeah, it is interesting, and it's one of those things a lot of people just don't. Again, it's you're finding information in ways that people don't realize you can get it.
Yep. I said, but you guys can run this right on your machines, and pull it back. Like I said, it's a neat trick, and it could be useful. Um, you never know what you're going to find in there or what could be useful to you. It could even be maybe like the SSIDs are correlated to places. So like in mine, I have that Barkay guest up there, which Barkay is a dog park. If you guys aren't familiar, so you could look at those, and maybe for some reason you want to know where this person goes or what this person does. You can track them via via what Wi-Fi they're connected to, right? So just something to think about. I just think it's so neat. And then kind of the last bit of juicy loot that we have is your browser data, right? No one wants anybody looking at their browser history. We've all heard the joke. It's like, wear a medical alert bracelet that says, if I die, delete my browser history, right? You don't want people knowing what you got in there. But in all seriousness, you can, I mean, there's your autofill data there. If you use your browser as kind of your credential manager, right? It's got that information in there. It's going to take a little bit more work to crack that, but it's still there. You got open tabs, your session information. How I was thinking of it is if you pull back someone's, this one specifically is Edge, but Firefox and Chrome are the same. They're in a similar path. If you pull back someone's browser information and they have all their like intranet sites in there, now you've essentially enumerated their internal servers without having to really do anything. Just passively collect this and parse it instead of having to run, look at DNS history or things like that, or try to figure out different ways to connect to internal sites. So I think that this one, with a little bit of creativity, you could really pull back some really interesting stuff.
Well, you can expand out on this a little bit more too, getting outside of just the web browsers. The way our modern operating systems are working is everything is consistently being indexed, right? So even if you went and thought about just your local drive browse data, looking at that recent hive,
Mm,
like that's a really quick, easy way to key off on, okay, what are the most commonly used files, things they're editing, they're accessing, stuff like that, and really bypass having to do a manual search and hunt for a ton of stuff. You could just go check out the 10 most recent files they've opened and see if there's anything worthwhile in there.
yeah, for, for sure, for sure. So we definitely found in when we were building this inside of your local app data, there's a lot of goodness in there. You wouldn't believe what's being saved off. So highly
Mhm.
recommend that. Like Trey said, even taking a step back from just the browsers themselves, just kind of looking in that and looking at what are your programs and what is your installed software logging? What is it looking at? What is always there for any? You don't need any special permissions to view this stuff. It's just cache data, right? Definitely something to think about. And then this is not really looking for loot rather than getting the loot, but just we just took
Mhm.
a little screenshot of some of the files in throughout the thread that we made and talked about that we collect, and then we'll exfiltrate off to then, like I said, do some offline password cracking or view it, have somebody go through and find some juiciness, get some more, do some more discovery, but in a more passive way than actively trying to interact with the system, right?
The other thing I would want to throw out there, because I know we hit our time already, which is awesome. I thought we would be a little short with how fast we were going,
Yeah.
but these are all very simple, very easy ways to potentially find good data during your engagements. But the broader picture here I'd want people to pay attention to is the interconnectedness of everything, how everything's being indexed, how everything's being saved. And this is one of those little pieces where I've always kind of wondered, and I've been trying to work down a potential like attack path or chain from sticky notes to a new implant on a new host or user.
Mm,
Because there's a ton of integrations with Cortana just built into Windows, and the way it can read your sticky notes. You can put formulas, or you can use it to do things like check the values of certain stocks. Cortana will read those notes every day and give you output and values. But a lot of people don't realize that it's also tied into, say, the native Windows Outlook.
mm,
It's tied into all of the other Windows apps and things like that. So Cortana has the ability to like read, write, and access all of your stuff within those apps. So what's to say someone that potentially gains access to your mail couldn't get access to all of that, because they're there for the longest time. I haven't looked at the newest update of Outlook. Any sticky notes you had down locally also would appear in your Microsoft account, like in your OO window. There's a whole little
mm.
tile for sticky notes. So what's saying I couldn't give Cortana instructions in a sticky note saying, download this payload or copy this link, send this link to a bunch of people, and then execute it on the other end.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find an interesting way to chain all of that together, but
Mm.
it's the thought is scary of how much all of this stuff is interconnected.
Yeah, I mean that totally makes sense. You figure if you have it, you have M365 or whatever, on even on your phone or other laptops, you send it to one, it's like a worm. It just spreads over to all of them. That would be interesting to do in the future, as well as I think looking more at what Cortana has and what information is available from that. Because that's a good point. If you're signed into something and it's attached to all your machines that you all the machines you have, everything you're signed into, that yeah, that would be really neat. It's almost a little scary to think about.
Yeah, because I mean, you think if you're using the Outlook app on your phone, then you've got it on a tablet,
Mm,
your work laptop, your personals. Now, all of your stuff is syncing consistently together, and as
no.
long as Cortana has access, she can do what she wants
Yeah,
realistically. So,
do whatever she wants. Yeah, Paul brought
I
up
don't know, just
a
my
point
weird
for
little
the
tinfoil hat piece.
yeah. Well, he brought up one for the routines via Android. So I assume that that's a you have a routine or like a if this then that. I remember that was really popular. It's like interacting. I think that was kind of the whole point of this, right? It's like interacting with things in a way that is a little different, but it's installed in everything. It's authenticated with everything. That might have higher level permissions like Cortana, something like that. I mean, it's a lot of room out there to kind of do whatever you want, and a lot of information that's stored where you don't have to create processes. You're not making logs. You're just looking at information that's already there. It's like just walking by a store, doing a little window shopping.
Well, I think that about rounds us out for today, eh, Tyler? We got through the cool little points we wanted to talk to, and we stayed
Yeah,
under a decent time.
we stayed on. Maybe we should bump these to 30 minutes.
Yeah, it seems to be that's right where our
I
window
don't
is.
think. Yeah, I don't think we've ever met the 20-minute mark. But yeah, this was fun. Hopefully everybody saw some cool stuff in there. If you're a Scythe customer, we will be putting this out as a threat here before too long. Probably the end of next week, maybe at the latest. It'll be out there, so you're able to see and implement this in your own network. But even if you're not a Scythe customer, you can still look at these paths. You can figure out a way to use it. Hopefully, and yeah, hopefully everybody got some out of it. You got any last words, Trey? I see some stuff on the banner there.
Yep, a few things. First one being we do monthly workshops, and obviously, if you're watching this, you know we're doing these Threat Thursday lives. So you've got two or three chances every month to catch up with us, talk with the team, see some new cool stuff we're putting out, or potentially learn some new skills. Outside of that, we also are going to be at Black Hat. We're going to be there hanging out, doing some cool stuff, having some breakfast, some happy hours, some panels, things like that. So if you haven't reached out to us yet, reach out to us. Let's catch up while we're out there at Hacker Summer Camp this year.
Hacker Summer Camp. I love that. Yeah. Say thanks everybody for hopping on and see you soon. Hopefully.
Yeah, till next time.
See ya.